This episode of the Registry Insider was filmed live at the National Association of EMS Educators Symposium. Please excuse the quality of the audio. Welcome to the Registry Insider. I'm Bill Seifarth, CEO of the National Registry and host for today's podcast. And the topic we have today, while broadcasting from, or filming, I should say, from the National Association of EMS Educators Conference in Pittsburgh, is simulation in EMS education. Joining me for today's conversation are two members, Dr. Andy Spain and Tim Whitaker from the Society for Simulation in Healthcare. And gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for today's brief conversation and today's overview. So let's talk about a little bit about some efforts that are underway and some collaboration that's going on to bring better awareness and resources to EMS educators as it relates to simulation.
Absolutely. Where we of course sit is that we're trying to promote simulation as an educational methodology and using that where appropriate in various curriculums, be it for paramedics, nurses, physicians. We're an interprofessional organization with members from all over, including veterinarians, for example. Simulation is a common methodology for all the professions to educate and train. So we're working with NREMT, NEMC, COE, other EMS organizations to work to investigate where are the challenges, how can we collectively work together to address those challenges and promote simulation as an educational methodology. Therefore, we end up with great EMTs, paramedics, and providers that are going to promote patient safety.
Yeah, so that's obviously a bold initiative, and I think it's something that's definitely needed. Mm-hmm. Is it fair to say that, and I base this question on a lot of feedback we get, is it fair to say that there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for growth and for better resources to be made available to EMS educators so they can take advantage of simulation? Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. We've been developing resources as a society for a number of years. They're not EMS specific right now, but that's where we have one of the opportunities is to engage in that conversation to help promote them specific to EMS in the setting educationally. Because while the methodology is the same, applying it for paramedics and EMTs and existing providers sometimes is a challenge.
Absolutely. I agree. And there's one of the gaps actually came out in the workshop we did yesterday. A lot of people are not even aware of the resources out there. Some of the societies such as us does this. We even have an affinity group and it's free if you go to the society website. And there's a lot of shared information there. I think a lot of the basic methodology understanding is where we need to start in the industry for EMS, to include even knowing that there's a certification behind all this to teach in simulation and it's available.
So what I'm hearing you say, Tim, is that a weekend crash course on simulation is not sufficient for an educator?
I would agree. We can start there.
That was sarcasm.
That's okay. That's okay. It's not anything that a 4 hours will get you, but it'll get you started. At least you can give them, some of the tools to go looking. There's a wealth of information out there. Again, the big thing I always say is that it may have the Nursing Association Simulated Class tag to it, but it's not about nursing. It's about the best practice. And at the end of the day, when you use the best practice, apply it to your simulation program, you're going to achieve competency. You may achieve learning at a quicker competency rate, and it's patient safety at the end. We're not hurting people. We're doing it in sim first.
Right. That makes sense. Fundamentally, absolutely makes sense. So what are some of the current resources that are out there that EMS educators, which, by the way, a lot of subscribe to your podcast, what are some resources that are out there that currently exist that educators can go to? And secondly, what are you thinking about potentially creating a specific for EMS, these collaborative efforts?
I think we start with the Healthcare Simulation Dictionary, which is a collaborative effort to aggregate language for simulation, how we all collectively use it. Because if I'm saying debriefing and you're saying debriefing, but we have different meanings to it, that can actually create communication barriers. So sharing how the language is used is a tremendous way to start. And I think the next one would be the Code of Ethics, the Healthcare Simulations Code of Ethics, because it lays down those aspirational values for engaging in appropriate simulation practice that doesn't harm the learners and is focused on improving patient outcomes, patient safety, and other measures like that, which of course are why we exist in the first place.
So elaborate on that a little bit, because obviously it makes sense why we'd use simulation in Tim. If we said this in the vein of patient safety, could you practice on a simulation first before using on a live patient? how is the potential benefit to the students? Would it imply that there's potential harm for students that are received if simulation is done wrong?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They're the best practice on how to deliver simulation, measure the outcomes. I think that's somewhere where we really need improvement. We're doing a lot of simulation. Do we know it's working? And there's a measurement behind it. Do we know it's being done effectively in what we call psychologically safe environment? There are a lot of things I've even been guilty of in the day, have done in simulation that occurs as a latent error downstream. You don't know that's going to happen until there's a stressful response to it. So we literally do talk about this. We call training scars, where this is a negative impact from that simulation. That could be due from anywhere from the way we built the simulation to the way we delivered it to the way we debriefed it with the student. So the best practice is to kind of steer you in the right direction, deliver meaningful, impactful simulation that can be measurable for learning outcomes and then downstream patient safety.
Good. That's good to know. So, which further reinforces the point that quality understanding, foundational basis curriculum as to how to incorporate a simulation pick is vitally important. Again, the more there's opportunities for collaboration, certainly between the registry, NEMC, COLA, SSIH, there's a little that is right there. Can you tell me a little bit, from a historical perspective, because my conversations that I started with SSIH were brought about based on some publications that came out to show me that it reinforced the simulation, if not done correctly, and actually getting acquired. It's certainly not beneficial when possibly one. Can you cite some of those articles that you may know off the top of your head and share with folks so that if they're listening, we can find out more as far as why we don't want to do some back simulation, and then potentially open the door up to opportunities for further education to learn more how to incorporate the simulation. So you want to give a high-level reference and have them off the top of your head?
I dare say the references off the top of my head, I'm not so strong on it. Just like any researcher, I have to go look it up and make sure I cite them correctly. But I think it's pretty easy to look around evidentially, just based on our own experience. And so think of simulations where they have truncated the time between cycles of CPR, for instance. It's like, okay, so you're going along and like, okay, so 2 minutes is gone. You actually need to work through the full 2 minutes. You actually need to work through even things like what happens when there's a return of spontaneous circulation. Because so much of our simulation stops when that happens. Well, a lot of our patients do get a return of circulation. What do we do then? That's a tangible example of where things have gone off the rails, so to speak. Even down to such simple things as, do you use gloves when you're doing simulation? We probably all witnessed people who have to literally tear the finger off of their glove just to start an IV because that's the way they learn. That's actually an embedded training scar because we trained and educated them taking shortcuts, as an example. I mean, again, these are sort of tangible behavioral things that we have seen. That's an example, and we can trace those through a lot of activities.
Well, the gloves on scene safe is another great example. It was a statement, or I would do this for my patient rather than just do it in the simulation. And again, with all this, there's also the notion that simulation involves all this technology. Simulation is not a technology, it's a technique. So good simulation doesn't require $100,000 simulators. It's the immersion that you're using and how realistic that is to what it would be in real life, right, in practice. So I think there are some notions, and the dictionary helps clear up some of that what is a partial task trainer, and what is this, and what is that, and how do you use that? So, and that's one of the great examples.
Computer-based simulations, tabletop simulations, oftentimes very, very low cost, low resource type activities that actually meet the needs of simulation, but must be grounded back in educational fundamentals. What are your objectives you're trying to achieve? What are your outcomes for the learner at that stage of their learning? Again, all based in educational theory and methodology that we're all very familiar with.
It kind of rolls back to the scars we were talking about with the reliances that, well, I don't only have this, and so I have to truncate something, I have to shorten a cohort's time just because I don't have all this. That's not necessarily true. It does not have to be done. There are alternate ways to go about that. And it leads back to understanding the methodology and the practice it out to embed that into your educational program.
So for the EMS educators, medical directors, program directors who are out there, they're down and watching, where can they go to find out, kind of address their curiosity as far as simulation, more about your society? Where do they go?
Well, of course, the website, ssih.org, is a great place to start. There's the INAXL website, the ASPE website specific to standardized patient methodology. They have some great resources there as well. You have other international organizations for those of our listeners that are from overseas. I mean, it's SESIM, APTION, Australia, and so forth. There's organizations for simulation worldwide. We all work together to promote the resources, to make them frankly available and easily accessible, such as the certification examination blueprints.
Yes.
You want to speak more to that?
Certification examination blueprints. There's two primary certifications: the Certified Healthcare Simulation Educator and the Certified Healthcare Simulation Operations Specialist. More of a technical background on that one. But both of them have blueprints. Those blueprints literally are practice analysis that we run worldwide. In that blueprint, you'll see the master domains and subdomains. And that is literally what you do on a daily basis. And that'll give them ideas of what that construct looks like. There's also other resources there, policy manuals for simulation centers. There's resources to all the other societies. So a great place to start digging, right?
I think and also could potentially gain a certification from it as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And more and more, that's another step on. I have a level of competency, I should say entry, a level of competency in delivering simulation to healthcare providers, right, or learners. So I think those are some good resources. And I think over time, all the collaboration that we're doing now, I mean, literally, there could be here's where you find all these things for you and your practice.
Excellent. You also, one last thing, SSIH has a new conference.
Yes.
Yep. Do you want to share a little bit about that? When your next conference is coming up for educators?
It's coming up in early January. Such our 25th anniversary. We'll be down in Orlando this year. We're hoping for 5,000 people on site. Fingers crossed. It'll be a record for us, of course. We're seeing so many more programs around the world invest heavily into simulation and appropriate simulation methodology through becoming certified, making their center accredited. Of course, you're all familiar with both certifications, licensure exams, accreditation. We have an accreditation specific to healthcare simulation, what is required organizationally, for example. And so all these things map together, and we share those practices and come together and have that great networking. We'll probably have well over 150 exhibitors on site, as you can imagine. That's a very energetic exhibit hall with lots of great activities and ways to engage in the community.
Awesome. So ssih.org, a lot of resources there for educators to find out more on the certification, to find out more about your conference coming up. So a lot of opportunities, I think, come in with the collaboration, certainly with SSIH, the Registry, COA, NEMC, and others coming up. And certainly you can watch our website at NREMT.org. But gentlemen, I thank you for taking time to chat with me today about simulation and EMS education, and we look forward to continue collaboration going forward.
Thank you
for having us. Yes. Appreciate it.
Thank you for watching, and as always, stay safe.
Thank you for joining us for this episode. If you wouldn't mind, please click the like and subscribe buttons, as well as the notifications so you can get notifications of upcoming episodes. Also, for the latest and greatest happenings of the National Registry, feel free to go to nremt.org. Thank you very much, and again, stay safe.